Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So why should I go for SAP S/4HANA? Why should I go for SAP HANA as a database? So the class is going to be very, very important today. Most of you might be known about by this time. Okay, so there is a concept called as transactions and analytics or analysis, whatever may be. Transaction and analysis. We see a system with the database. Okay, I see a system here. System means I call it as the application process, and the underlying database is going to be calling it as any database. I'm not talking about the HANA, I'm talking about the traditional database. When you call it as a traditional database, forget about the HANA, you can take any other databases over here. So this is my completely, I call it as my transactional system. Actually, I call it as a transactional system. Okay. Where I'm posting my day-to-day transactions, If you see from the procurement of the raw material, till the goods have been sold to a customer, till the invoice have been raised to the customer, till we receive the payments, okay, everything. So there will be a lot of transactions we are posting on the day-to-day wise. Okay, we call them it as a transactions. Actually, in SAP terminology or in normal terminology, we call them as the financial transactions. And I have another system with me right now. Okay, I have another system with me right now. The same, but the application process is going to be the different for me, and the underlying database is also going to be the different for me. So this system I'm using for the analytics, okay, analysis purpose actually. So analysis. Okay, now I have both the systems actually. If we go back to, okay, normally the consultant who has already been experienced in SAP, they can understand much more better about what is analysis system, analytics system. Okay, this we call it as a BW system actually. We call it as a business warehouse system actually. So the database, whatever the database I'm going to be using, this is called as a secondary access device. So I'm going to be taking the database, which I'm calling it as a AnyDB. You forgot about the HANA. Just a meanwhile, forgot about the HANA. So I'm talking about the AnyDB. You can take any DB. Okay, you can take the Microsoft or RDBMS or DBMS. You can take any DB over here. So here also I'm going to be using the AnyDB. Okay. This is my application. And this is also my application. I call it as a, okay, so I call it as my business suite only. It is not a business suite on HANA. It is only called as a business suite only. So this system, I called it as a transactional system. This is going to be called as my analytical systems. Okay, so what is happening here? Okay, so as a batch job process. Okay, so every week or something like, okay, so every month end, so there will be some batch jobs are going to be running, and through the batch jobs, I'm transferring the data to one system to another system. From this OLTP system to OLAP system, I call it as the online transactional system to online analytical system over here. So every month and something like I'll put some batch jobs. Okay, so I'll schedule some batch jobs, and what I'm going to do here, all the data. So from the OLTP system to OLAP system, I call it as the OLAP system actually. OLAP system, online transactional processing, online analytical processing. I can call it as the online analytical processing. So which we call it as the analysis system, and this is called as a transaction system. So if I want to extract a report, something like a complex report. Okay, so now today we are going to be having three types of reports actually. One report I can call as a transactional data report, and today we have one more report which is going to be calling it as a fact sheet report, and third one we can call it as an analytical report. So transactional report, whatever the day-to-day transactional report today, if I want to see any transactions, what is the total balance today, something like today's transaction, I'm talking about the date of 25/11/2020, 2019. So today's date, for example, past 3 days or today days or past 1 week data. So if I want to extract any kind of report, so I no need to depend upon my BW system or OLAP system, because I can directly compile the data from my database and I can give the data to your application. So that is a small amount of the data, not even into the GB, something like we are going to be considering into the MB data only. We are taking about MB or KB, something like KB of the data. So I can get the data directly from a database with a high throughput. With a high throughput. What do you mean by high throughput? The high throughput is nothing but, so the maximum amount of the data into the GB, considering with the seconds, within how many seconds you are extracting how much data of the GB from your database, which is called as the throughput, high throughput. So here, the high throughput is going to be considered to my any database. Means it is only 3 years, it is only 3 days of the data or maximum 1 week of the data. So I want something called as the customer report or vendor report or something like GL balance report. Any report you can take within the short period of time, within the date range of from 21 to 25. Example I'm taking here. Okay, so you can get the report directly from the OLTP system. So there is no need to dependent on my OLAP system. But there are some analytical reports and some fact sheet reports are there. There are some analytical reports and the fact sheet reports are there, where these reports are very complex. Why? Because there are something called as, we are going to be doing something called as, so there will be some combination of different tables to get the data. So I need to obtain the logic. So I need to obtain some logic to get the data from this vendor or something customer. So when you go back and see here, I want the customer aging report or something like vendor aging report or asset balance report from last 3 years of the data. So something like I want to compile the data and I had to get the report for the auditing purpose or maybe for internal reporting purpose. So what happens here? What happens here? My OLTP system is only serving you for the little data purpose, but not for the more data. So what I have to do here is nothing but, so what is happening every month and something like I'll schedule some batch jobs and I will transfer the data. Means, okay, the data will be through the batch jobs. I see the data will be transferred to your BW database. That is nothing but your another database, which is going to be stapled onto your BW system. So this I call it as, okay, so very, very important, extraction, transformation and loading, ETL process. Very, very important certification question to all of you. ETL process I can call it as. You are extracting the data from the OLTP system, you're transferring the data and you're loading the data to where? You are loading the data to another landscape. We can call it as another system or another hardware, we can call it as, which is called as the BW system, which is serving you as an OLAP process, online analytical process actually. So this is a separate site, this is a separate consultants are working on the BW system. As an FI consultant, I don't know how to build the reports in the BW system actually. So this will be done by your BW consultants will be there over here. So this is the batch jobs. Okay, so maybe something like some companies may go with the weekly batch jobs or something like some companies may go for weekly, something monthly or quarterly, whatever maybe. Okay, depends upon the data. So they will extract and they will transform and they will load the data to any database that is in the BW system. Now what I'll do here is nothing but my BW consultants, okay, they're going to write some cubes and they develop some cubes and they're going to extract the data and they develop the report in the BW system. They will develop the report in the BW system actually. So based on the SAP NetWeaver, okay, so there will be a NetWeaver will be there. So we are going to be working on the NetWeaver client. I'll tell you what is the NetWeaver client. And they are going to build the report here, not in the OLTP system. OLTP system doesn't serve you the purpose for any kind of analytical reporting actually. OLTP system is only serving you for the purpose of day-to-day transactions and with the limit data for the reporting. But if I want to get the data, which is about 3 years or 4 years, something like about, I want to get the data about 1.5 years, something like I need to dependent on my BW system, which is called as my OLAP system. Now, in this OLAP also, in this, when you go to the BW also, I see the throughput is not up to the extent what I'm going to be expected actually. So, because it is only the 3 years of data, but the time which is taking me to extract the data and give the data as a form of a report is very, very low, means it is taking maximum 10 to 15 minutes of time to give one report to me. So in 2010, in 2009 and 2010, what the SAP has brought out, they brought out one tool which is going to be called as BWA, Business Warehouse Accelerators. Business Warehouse Accelerators. We call them as the accelerators. Actually, what do you mean by accelerators? It is the speed actually. It is the speed to improve the performance of the extracting the reports from the database, to extract the data from the database. So actually they have introduced the tool called as BWA, Business Warehouse Accelerators actually. Now, after introducing this business warehouse accelerators, now I see something like there is some improvement in the performance. So something like whatever the time which has taken earlier, which is called as the 15 minutes or whatever maybe, now it has come reduced up to even, so 7 to 8 minutes. 7 to 8 minutes. It's much better than what I compared with earlier. So I'm introducing the accelerators. These accelerators, I think it in 2010, I think they have been introduced for the reporting purpose in the BW system. So what is happening here? So I'm using two different landscapes. One is for the OLTP, another one is for the OLAP landscape over here. So it depends upon the requirement. Also, I'm going to be using. Still, the companies they have using the BW systems for the analytical reporting purpose actually. Now, there is no common database approach. Actually, what I'm lacking here, there is no common database approach. So I can take like this. So there is no common database approach which serves me for both the transaction and for the analytics. No. Till 2010, very important, my dear friends. Till 2010, till 2011, I can tell either 2011 in the first quarter of the 2011, there is no common database approach where my system is going to serve, or my database is going to serve the purpose of both OLTP plus OLAP analytical processing in one database approach. So every time I need to depend on the two systems. One is OLTP, another one is OLAP for the analytical reporting purpose actually. So this extraction, transformation, and loading the data has to be done every month end. No way, nothing to do. And I had to use these accelerators. So how many data is there? If you see the data, there are 3 types of data is there. One data is in the transactions, very important. So one data is going to be called as the transactions, and the second one data is going to be called as accelerators. And third data is going to be called as analytical analysis. So you're experiencing 3 types of data. One is transaction, second one is acceleration, third one is going to be calling it as analysis. So what is the drawback over here? The drawback is nothing but I can call it as a complete post-mortem report for me. I can call it as a complete post-mortem report to me, because there is no other way, because I don't have any database which is going to serve you both OLTP and OLAP. So in 2011, in the middle of, I mean to say that in the second quarter of your 2011, SAP has come out with a new database which we call it as the SAP HANA database. SAP has come out with a new database where I'm going to be calling it as SAP HANA database. Now I'm going to be taking the new database into the SAP world, where I'm going to be, it's a big database. It's a big database. I can call it as a SAP HANA is going to be calling it as a big database. So the main advantage of bringing the SAP HANA into the world of SAP environment is nothing but it is called as in-memory database. I'll tell you the concept of what is an in-memory. In-memory DB. I'll tell you the concept. Okay, so tomorrow's class is also very important for us. We are going to discuss more into the in-memory database concepts over here. Very important class tomorrow also. I'll take one example now where why should I bring my in memory into the concept of SAP world? Now, for example, I take the same example here, same example of OLAP and OLTP together into the world. Now, this SAP HANA database, I am going to be calling it as a common database approach now. Okay, COMMON, common database approach, which brings, very, very important, my dear friends, which brings both OLTP plus OLAP into one database from today onwards. No need to have a separate databases from today onwards. From 2011, actually, when the SAP has introduced its own database, the main purpose of introducing the database into the world of SAP is nothing but to bring this OLAP and OLTP together. Now, if you see back to my earlier screen here, so I am using two different systems. One system is for the transactions, another system is for the analytics. Now, I brought one more system into the one more database, not a system. I'm bringing a one more database, which is going to serve you both OLTP plus OLAP together. Means it's a common database approach. It's a common database approach. Now, I'll go into the one example now, and I'll explain you very beautifully. Now you can see here. Now I'll take one example. I'll take you one example now. Friends, if you are somebody, I'm just a little bit background noise is coming. So if somebody is not talking, okay, please. Okay, could you please mute your call? If you don't mind, please. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I'm taking one system. Okay, this is my SAP Business Suite. This is my SAP Business Suite system. You can take it as the SAP Business Suite system. We know that this is the presentation. And this is my SAP Business Suite application, which is going to be called as my SAP ECC 6.0, or you can take any application over here. And this is my any database. Any database. Now, let me take one example now. I want a GL balance report, general ledger balance report. Okay, so what is the date range you're expecting? The date range I'm going to be expecting from 2019, that is from Jan 1st to till date. This is my report. This is my input parameter. And I'm taking for some multiple company codes, about 8 to 10. Okay, I'm going to be taking up to 3 to 4 company codes, whatever may be the data. Now, what I'm going to do here is nothing but my user is going to send a query. Means the report he is executed in the presentation system. We call it as a presentation. You all know what is the presentation by this time. Most of the people have worked in SAP ECC or maybe another background. So you have the presentation, which is called as a GUI, graphical user interface. I'll show them. Okay. Now, when he is executing the reports, when he has given the input parameters like what is the company code and for which financial year you want and from which date to which date you are going to be extracting, for which business areas you want this report, everything I have given all the parameters in the input screen. Once he has executed, the query will be go to the ECC system. That is nothing but your application, because application where exactly the server is going to be resided. But where is the data? The data is not in the ECC application. The data is not in the middle layer. The data, whatever the data you are want to be looking out, the tables and the data is available in the database, not in the ECC. So the query, what it will do, the query will be get pushed to your any database. Means the query will be pushed to your database. Why? Because we all know that if you take any database, if you take either it is going to be the Microsoft database or DBMS or RDBMS or any database you take, Oracle DB or any DB you take, the data will be stored in the database in a form of a table. How the data is going to be stored? The data will be stored in a database in a form of a table, actually, tables. Any database you take, okay, the data will be stored in tables actually. Now, the data is available in the database, not in the application. Now, what this query has to do actually earlier, Before the ICP HANA database has been introduced earlier, means till 2010, 2011, in the mid of 2011, we don't have the mechanism of parallelization and the partitioning. We don't have the mechanism called as parallelization and partitioning. We don't have this parts. What is the meaning of parallelization and the partitioning? Every database table, if you take, every database table you take, every database table, the database table is going to store the data in two forms. One is columnar storage. Another one is going to be called as a row-based storage. We can construct the tables at two different levels. One, you can store the data in the database tables in a columnar way, or you can store the data, you can set the database tables as a row-based. Either it can be any option you can take over here. So earlier we don't have the concept called as parallelization and the partitioning. So what does it mean? That what is the meaning of this parallelization and the partitioning? Now I'm going to explain the concept here. Now, if I go into the core processes, okay, if I go into the core processes, if I go into the processor system, so there is going to be called as the multi-core processes. Actually, we can see there are multi-core processes are going to be working in the database from the table wise. So here I'm going to be taking about 8 to 9. Okay, so whatever maybe. Okay, so don't consider, but there will be hundreds of processes are going to be working. If you take your iPhone, okay, if you take your latest iPhone, it is called as octa processor system. Actually, your iPhone is working on the octa processors. Octa means it is an AI processor going to be working in the backend. So if you take the database, there are multiple processors going to be working to extract the data actually. Now, what are the tables which are going to be looking out for this GL balance report? I'm looking out for two tables. Okay, one is called as my header table, which is called as my BKPF. Another one is going to be called as my line item level table, which is called as the BSEC. Non-SAP consultants might be, it is just something like tricky to understand, but I'll explain, because when we are starting the classes, I am going to explain you more detailedly about what are all the tables which are now available in SAP S/4HANA and what tables are not available. I'm going to take a much more detailed way in the classes. Don't worry about that, but just consider. So these are the two finance tables. Actually, we call them as the GL tables, finance tables. One is called as the BKPF, another one is called as the BSEC. Okay, BKPF is called as the header table, which stores all the header information about the transactions, and the line item level table we are going to be calling which GL account has debited, which GL account has credited, what is the amount, everything. The line item level table is called as the BSEC table. Now, this query, what it will do, first it will go and enter into the processor one, into the table. Okay, it will go and enter into the processor one. Actually, I'm going to be observing here. Actually, my system has to do in a multiple queries. Actually, there is no, I am expecting my query has to be done based on the parallelization. What do you mean by parallelization here? The query, whatever the query I'm sending to the database, actually, this query has to be get splitted into multiple queries. But multiple queries, it has to be get splitted, and it has to get the data from each and every processes. But this is not the case which is going to be happen to me. Earlier, there is no mechanism which is going to be calling it as a parallelization. Earlier means till 2010. Now the query which is entering into the processor one, automatically the remaining processes which are available, which is having the data with the database tables, are going to be locked. Automatically, they are going to be locked. No. One processor cannot do its activity based on the multiple processing system earlier. So once this activity is completed, then this query will go into the processor number 2. Why? Because now the processor 1 activity has completed. So it has got the data what is available in the processor 1, and now it is shifting to the processor 2. Now what is happening? The processor 1 is getting locked, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 getting locked. Only the 2 is getting unlocked. Again, it will go to the processor 3. Tell me now how much time. So if you see how much time it is taking to extract the data from the database table. This is not the way which I'm going to be experiencing. This is not the way which I'm going to be expected from the database mechanism. But there is no other way. Because SAP doesn't have its own database system till 2010, 2011. We are the tenant of other database systems. We are the tenant of Oracle. We are the tenant on the DB of Microsoft DB or DBMS or RDBMS. You can take Microsoft SQL DB, whatever maybe you can call it as. So we call this database as a secondary access device. Everything is going to be happen based on the disk processing actually. Everything is going to in the back end. If you go and see, everything is going to be happened within the disk processing. The distance between my CPU and my database is the distance between the CPU and the database is very, 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 very long over here. So what is happening? This we can call it as the secondary access device. So this can't be happened. Okay, now anyhow, so it has got all the data. How much time it has taken? Only just I'm expecting about 11 months of the data. So how much time it has taken? Normally it will take not less than about 5 minutes. Okay, I'll take about the 5 minutes. The time which has taken to extract the data from the database is about 5 minutes. Okay, finally we got the data. Yes, finally we got the data. Now what the database has to do? The database now it has to compile the report now based on the tables, whatever the data, whichever the data which has got from each and every table. Now the database, what it has to do, it has to compile both the tables. It has to compile the BKPF table and it has to compile the BSEC table. Okay, now the compilation I'm expecting from my database, but not happening over here. What the database is going to do now? Hey, SAP, this is not my job. You are expecting the data, whatever the query you are sending to me, I am giving the data to you. That's all from my side. But I'm not going to compile the report based on these two tables. So now I'm going to send you data back to you now, ECC. I am going to send this data back to you. Now what the ECC, this is the application, my dear friends. It's not a database. ECC is nothing but your application. It doesn't contain any data. It is a server. It is a kernel level software. It is a kernel level software. So what I have to do here is nothing, but there is no other option. So my middleware system, now it is compiling the data based on the two tables which have got extracted from your processing files. Now I got the data from these two tables. Now these two tables are available in the ECC. Now the ECC system, what it has to do, it has to start doing the compiling. If you see any report, you can see some compiling of the data actually. So for example, if I go to the system, see here, I'll just log into one system. Now I'm just taking one report. I'm just taking one report. Example, I'm taking one report. Now I'm executing, I'm sending, this is the query. Now, once I executed here, this is my presentation actually. This is what exactly I call it as a presentation. This is called my presentation. As I told you that this is the first one, actually I'm calling it as the first one. This is my presentation. I'm executing this report from this particular presentation system. Now I'm executing. Now what happens, see here. Now it is going to extract the data. This time it is taking, now you can see it has still now I've not got that. It is compiling. Now it is getting the data from your processes. Now you can see here. See, items are getting, see here, selection continuing over here. And what it will do, it will compile the report now, okay? So what is happening, now all the items are getting parallelized. That is nothing but it is getting the data from your processes and it is getting compiled. Now you can see how many reports are getting compiling over here. Now what is happening, once you got the data from the database, once whatever the tables which are going to be given, whatever the tables, okay, whichever the tables, maybe here I'm taking only 2 tables. Maybe there are 8 to 9 tables are going to be compiling for this report actually. So this compilation will be done in the ECC, not in the database. Actually, frankly speaking, The database has to do the compiling, not the application. Application never do the compiling because application is a server. If something goes wrong with the application, the entire SAP will be collapsed. So what my basis people are going to do, they are going to put some runtime rate. They are going to put some runtime. They are going to put some runtime. The runtime should be not more than 4 to 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes. If the compiling is taking more than 5 minutes, if the compiling is taking more than 5 minutes in the application, the system has to go with the runtime error. No, I cannot compile the report. Why? Because the data is very, very huge in the database table. So I cannot compile the report in my application. So what is happening? It will give some runtime error to you. So you cannot get the report onto the presentation. So again, the user, he has to split this report into monthly wise and he has to get the data. So second option, there is no other way. This is what exactly. So what I'm going to do here is, so I'm sending this data. I'm sending this data through the ETL process. Through the ETL process, I'm sending this data to my OLTP system to OLAP system now. I'm sending every monthly, I've sent the data here. So whatever the report which I'm going to be expected, that report I will ask my VW consultant to get the report from this system, not from your OLTP system. Not from your OLTP system. I will get this report from your BW system, Business Information Warehouse system. So these people are going to do that activity. They will develop this report and they will give it back to you through the same ETL process so that you can see the report. But why should I depend? See, this is very small data. Even it is not even 9 months or so, less than 9 months of the data. But you're putting a runtime for 5 minutes. Yes, I can accept because the runtime is going to be 5 minutes. So if the report is not going to be developed, if the report is not going to be compiled within 5 minutes, the system has to go for the runtime over here. But who is going to serve this purpose? Actually, database has to do this service. Oh, what is the database duty actually? The database duty is going to be look like this. The database has to do all the systems. Okay, so when you come here, the database is not only serving you for the purpose of database service. The database has to do the application services. The database has to do the processing services. The database has to do the integration services. And apart from the database has to do the database services also. It has to do this, all the 4 activities. This is what I'm expecting. No, nothing is going to be happened over here in my database. So I can see there is a runtime error. Now, this is not going to be happening. So to avoid, so I can call it as a complete, as I told you that it's a completely post-mortem report, my dear friends. Even it is not a data which I'm going to be expected. It is taking more time. Why should I take monthly report? Why should the system has to give me the report with one shot? Always I need to depend on the BW system. Always I have to depend on the BW system. No, this is not happening for me. Actually, this is not exactly what I'm looking out from my database system. There is no parallelization and there is no partitioning. The first important thing is missing about the parallelization and the partitioning. Now, in 2011, when I got my SAP HANA database, so I introduced a new memory, which is going to be called as an in-memory database system, which is called as SAP HANA database system, which is called as my in-memory database. So I'm going to be taking the RAM. RAM is nothing but, okay, see, earlier till 2018s or 19s. So, okay, if you want to afford the RAM, it is very high. Okay, so we cannot afford the RAM with the minimum cost. So now the RAM has become very cheap. Now everybody is taking the RAM as your database. The same concept I'm also using in my SAP HANA also. I'll explain more detailedly. Now, in my SAP HANA database, I see the parallelization and the partitioning now. In the SAP HANA database, I see the parallelization and the partitioning. Now, I'll remove this. I'll remove this SAP as a database. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to bring in my new database, which I call it as SAP HANA database. Yeah, friend, you can unmute and you can talk to me, sir. Friends, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes.
What about Kushbu Patel?
Yes.
So madam, you're hearing my voice. Am I right?
I was hearing somebody else complain they couldn't hear you, so I told him no, we can hear him.
Okay. Oh, where's Coco? Coco, you're there in the class? Coco, there is something okay, which went wrong from your side. Can you check it out whether you're in unmute or something like that? So there is some mistake because everybody in the class is able to hear my voice. So there is something which went wrong from your side. Could you please check and come back on that? Okay. Now, see, SAP HANA database is a very, very important class. I'm telling here. You will expect 2 to 3 certification questions only from the database system. So I'm going to take you. It's not based on the certification. As I told you earlier also, I'm going to explain the process in a real time. Please make sure that. Now, I'm bringing a new database into the system, which is called my SAP HANA database. This SAP HANA database is called as my in-memory database. Is called as in-memory database. I'll tell you what is the in-memory, everything we are going to discuss. There is a new slide. There are some PPTs are prepared. I'm going to explain more detailedly about the in-memory and everything. Now, this SAP HANA database, now we have the concept called as parallelization and the partitioning. Very, very important. This is the main advantage why I'm bringing my database into the world of SAP. Now, I have this parallelization and the partitioning. Now, what is SAP is telling that now from today onwards, you no need to require any BW extractors. Now nothing, no BW extractors are going to be required if you have the SAP HANA as a database. Single database, single BW extractor is going to be enough. If you have a multiple BW extractors, not required. Now, why? Because I'm going to give the BW capabilities within the same HANA database only. Very, 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 very important. Now you are going to be having same BW capabilities. Very, very important. Somebody please mute your call. If somebody is not talking in the class, mute your call. Friends, I'm requesting please. Okay. Now, within the same HANA database, I'm bringing the capabilities of the BW now. Now, what is happening? Now, I brought a parallelization and the partitioning. Now, if I send the same query of your GL balance report in my SAP HANA database, what is happening? The query will go to your database system. Now there is no secondary access device which I had given the name earlier for the Oracle or DBMS or DBMS. Now we should not call it as a secondary access device because earlier I am the tenant of other database systems. So that is the reason I am calling the databases or called as secondary access device. Now there is no disk processing actually. Disk processing is no more available in SAP S4 HANA, sorry, in SAP HANA in-memory database platform. There is a disk process is there, but I'm not using the disk process for the frequently accessing the data. Now what I'm going to do here is nothing but now the same report, if I'm executing with from my SAP HANA database, now the same query, whatever the query is going to do with the parallelization. What do you mean by parallelization? The query automatically it is going to split into multiple queries. Very, very important. Earlier, this is not the case. Earlier means if we go back, earlier the query is not going to be splitted into multiple queries. Now we have an option called as the query is going to be splitted into multiple queries, and one query will go into the processor 1, second query go into the processor 2, processor 3, processor 4, like this. What is happening? There will be a dedicated processing system for each and every query now from today onwards. Now there is no locking mechanism because we have the partitioning between one processor to another processor. Now we have the locking mechanism between one processor to another processors over here now. Okay, so what is happening now? I'm bringing the concept called as parallelization and the partitioning. Because of this parallelization and the partitioning, I can see the same query is getting splitted into multiple queries. Automatically it is getting splitted, and each and every query will go into the processor 1. Now what is happening here? So within the no time, earlier it was taken 5 minutes. Now within the no time, even if you can't expect 10 seconds also, my dear friends, you cannot expect 10 seconds. It is less than 10 seconds. Within the no time, I will get all the data from the processes. Now, whatever the data which I got from the table, I will do all the compiling in the SAP HANA database, not in the ECC. Earlier, what is happening? The Oracle database is sending the database table to ECC, and the ECC has to do the compiling. Now, no. Now the compiling part is also will be done by your SAP HANA database itself only. Now what is going to do? Now your database, your in-memory database, it is going to compile your reports. And once the compilation has been successfully done, I will send back the report to you. Now you can see the report in your SAP Fiori, or maybe you can see where I'm going to be using SAP Fiori. I'll tell you what is the Fiori. Now the front end I'm going to be using called as my new application, which is going to be calling it as my UI5 application. Earlier I'm going to be using the GUI application. Now from today onwards, I'm going to be using the new front end application called as Fiori. We have a classes on the Fiori also. We have a classes on the Fiori also. I'm going to take out your technical aspects about the Fiori also. Very, very important. What are the technical aspects we should be considered from the functional point of view? You should have a knowledge on the technical. What is this OData connectivity? What is this UI5 application? How this Fiori is going to work for the front-end reporting system? Now I can post all the transactions from the Fiori. Now I can execute the reports from the Fiori. So what are the data which is available? What is this transactional reporting? What is this fact sheet reporting? What is this analytical reporting? We are going to enjoy a lot. I'm telling that we will be enjoying the classes like anything in the coming days. Very, very important. That is the guarantee I'm going to be giving to all of you. I'm not going to take the classes just like an Oscar movie. No, Oscar movie is a very boring movie. So that is the reason they will give the awards. So, but here everything will be based on the action movies only. So I'm going to, you will be enjoying a lot. I'm telling. If one day there is no class, you will be, you yourself feel lonely about that. Why there is no class today? That much of interest I'm going to bring it to all of you. Now, I'm getting all the data because of my parallelization. I have a partitioning between one processor to another processor. Now what is happening? This query is getting splitted into multiple queries, and it will get the data from each and every query. And what is happening within the 10 seconds, I'm going to get all the data. Now the HANA database, what it is going to do, now it will start doing the compiling. If you see this report, this is what exactly I'm going to be telling. Now here you have the called as complete multi-core parallelization and advanced compression mechanism over here. Now you can see here. So the database service, now what it is going to do, now we have a multi-core parallelization. Now both OLTP plus OLEP is columnar storage within the one database. So what I'm going to do here is nothing but now I'm going to compile the report. Now I'll give the report back to you. Now what is happening earlier, the same report you are taking for 10 minutes, for compiling 5 minutes, for extracting 5 minutes, totally 10 minutes. Now I'm going to give the report within 10 seconds, not even minutes also. Within 10 seconds, I'm going to give the report, which is going to be calling it as high throughput, which is called as very high throughput. See, I'm not going to be more into the technicality, please, because we are the functional people. How this throughput is going to work, we are not going to discuss more into the technicality. So that is the beauty, that is the acceptance which will be done by your basis consultant, not from our side. So I can tell you how exactly it works. That's all. Okay. So now we are going to be having very high throughput. What is the high throughput? Throughput is right, as I told you that with the seconds, consider with an amount of the data you're going to be getting, with how much GB you're going to get within 10 seconds or whatever may be. Now I'm going to be getting the high throughput, and I can see there is a compression of the data. Compression. I'll tell you what is the compression also. Okay. So you can see the compression of the data within the SAP HANA database. Now you can see, and now you can understand about why should I go with. So if I put here the same diagram in a more systematically here, now this is what exactly which is going to be happening. So this is my system. So everything I'm putting in one diagram now. Okay, this is your application, and this is my database. This is my database. Now I want to put one diagram here like this. Now I'm putting I'm taking the triangle here, inverted triangle, and I'm putting something about the most important here is nothing but I'm putting one more triangle here. Now you can see the difference over here. Now you can see the difference over here now. This is my classical approach. And this is my traditional approach. This is my traditional approach. When you call it as a traditional approach, I'm going to be calling it as the SAP HANA. When you're calling it as a classical approach, you can take it as any database. You can call it as any database. Now, if you see this both, you can understand here means here, what you see the triangle, if you see the triangle here, the database, when you see the classical approach, the database is serving you only the requirement which you are going to meeting is only up to 25%, my dear friend. 25%, not more than 25%. Because you're extracting the data. The database is only used to store the data, not for compiling, not for analytical. But 75% of your analytics are going to be coming from the application here. 75%. Your application is going to serve you the purpose, means it is compiling the reports. But when I came back to my SAP HANA database, if you see the inverted side over here, now the same, not even 70%, 75%, not it is more than that, means 95%. Now I'm bringing all the analytics from here and only 10% is going to be executing the report wise. I'm just putting over to now you can see the difference over here. Means your SAP HANA database is going to serve you about the database activity, not only for the database. If you see here, your SAP HANA database is going to do your application service like web dispatcher and JavaScript and everything, and processing services like prediction reporting, and integrated service like ETL and replication, everything. Now I told that. And apart from that, you are also going to see the database services like columnar storage, multi-core processing, advanced compression, multi-tenancy, multi-tier storage, data modeling is there. So open standards, I'll tell you all these things. Okay, so you are going to see much more. What you are going to be expecting now, we are going to be reaching more than that. 100% means I can give you 101% within my SAP HANA database. So if you see this diagram, now I'm going to be bringing that your both OLAP and OLTP both are going to be combined over here. Now overall this diagram is, I explained about the concept of overall this diagram. Now what is happening earlier, the separated transaction plus analysis plus acceleration processing. Earlier, your transactions are happening in one system, your analysis is going to be happening in one system, and your accelerators are going to be happening in one system. By the catch means you are going to get 3 different copies of the data earlier, as I told you in one diagram just now. Okay, now when you back to your SAP HANA database, now all these 3 systems I'm putting in one database. Now all these 3 processings are going to be happened within one database, that is going to be happening within my SAP HANA database from today, where I'm going to be calling it as a DRAM, where I call it as a DRAM. Now what is happening? It is called as a common database approach. What is the meaning of common database approach? Common database approach is nothing but now your transaction plus analysis are going to be happened within one database, which is called as my in-memory database. Your transactions and plus analysis are going to be happened in one database, not going to be required. No BW system, no accelerators are going to be required. Now I bring all your analytical and transactionals in one database, which I call it as my SAP HANA database, where I have given the name called as an in-memory database. So it will eliminate the unnecessary complexity and the latency, less hardware to manage. What is the less hardware to manage? If you see back, I don't require this from today onwards. My dear friends, I don't require this complete system from today onwards. I don't require now. One system with one database, Now from today onwards, where I'm going to bring all your BW capabilities. Now I don't require this ETL also, my dear friends. So I don't require this ETL processing from today onwards, no required. So that is the reason SAP is very clearly telling that this is called as a common database approach, where I'm going to bring all in one database, which is called as my DRAM, which is called as my in-memory, where I have the parallelization and the partitioning mechanism over here. So eliminate unnecessary complexity and less hardware to manage, and accelerate through the innovation and the simplifications. My dear friends, now we have done many simplifications in SAP S4HANA. If we go back, there is a simple finance and simple logistics. Now all the secondary index tables are completely removed. Now I simplified your processes. Now I removed all the index and aggregate tables. Now earlier you have so many index and secondary index and aggregate tables are there, which is built on your database tables. Now from today onwards, I don't have any kind of index and aggregations on the top of your database tables. I simplified your database mechanism. Now from today onwards, means your database tables are very limited. Now you can have the complete data from one table. Example, I'll give that universal general entry table, which is called as ACDOCA table, ACDOCA table. I completely simplified. This is called as a common database approach. Why should I choose SAP HANA as a database as my underlying for my application? Either it can be the ECC or it is for the SAP S4 HANA.
Hey Mahesh, can you just explain about the table a little more, the DB table that you're talking about?
We have, sir. We have more detailed way actually. So when we come this slide now, I'll explain you more details. See, now we are only here, sir. We are not even moved to the second one. See, we are only here. We are talking about the SAP HANA database only.
Okay, thank you.
We have the SAP business. Now here, when you come to this slide, the blue color one, we'll talk more about the simplification, sir. I'll talk to you about more about the tables here from the blue color one. Clear, sir?
Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks, Mahesh.
Don't worry, sir. Everything, sir. Everything is going to be covered. Even you will not get a single doubt. That is the guarantee. So this is what exactly we call it as the SAP HANA database. So now tomorrow we have a class what is called as the columnar storage, what is called as the row-based storage. Well, today we have seen only the parallelization and the partitioning, only single. This 55 minutes what we have taken is only about the parallelization and the partitioning only. So tomorrow we are going to discuss more about the HANA database. What is this multi-tier processing, multi-tenant processing? What is this core processing is SAP HANA database? We have separate slides. I'll give the overview on the slides over tomorrow about that. So any doubts? Any doubts, friends? Anybody has any doubts or something like? And this is my in-memory database. So this is tomorrow's class. This is what is the in-memory database system. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to take what is the in-memory database system, what is the in-memory database, what is this data modeling, what is this multi-tenant database, what is this multi-tier storage, and we are going to discuss all these things tomorrow. I'll just, and whatever the PPTs I'm explaining on the desktops, you will get all these PPTs for you. You can download and you can read also, don't worry. So this is not only for the explaining in the classes, so I'm going to share these PPTs with you, all of you. And one more thing, this is the simplification list. Actually, I'm talking about, okay, so every version SAP is going to release you one simplification process. So this is 1899. Tomorrow I'll show the 1909 and everything. So I can explain you more about the simplification, what simplifications have been happened between SAP ECC to SAP S4 HANA.
So Mahesh, quick question. So do we have like any homework or any, study to do like for session 1 and session 2?
Once I enter into the finance means, see, now these are going to be called as OU classes on SAP HANA and the SAP HANA database. Okay, so this is only up to the knowledge where, because there will be something like 8% of the questions which are coming from this basic of SAP HANA and SAP HANA database. So once I complete this, once I enter into the SAP S4 HANA finance, from there you can get some assignments.
And you will share the slides for like session 1 and session 2 both, right?
You will have all the video recordings, madam. Okay, So tomorrow we'll see about that. Okay, thank you very much.
Mahesh, Praveen here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mahesh, just on a curiosity, like, see, when we depend upon any database, say for example, we will be having a certain advantages using any database. Say for example, Microsoft or Oracle, they may having a different advantages. So, can we build the same sort of advantages in a SAP HANA database as well? I mean, like.
Can I one example, sir? Maybe one example so that I can correlate. If because see, we are the not database consultant. If even though if I'm not going to answer, definitely I'll get in touch with my DB consultants in my
Nothing
company.
as an example. I'm just like just a thought came in mind. Say for example, any database is giving. I mean, we'll be having one advantage. Say for example, any of the advantage.
Okay.
So, do we are we able to build the same sort of data? I mean, advantage in SAP HANA as well?
Definitely, sir. Yes, I got your question, sir. Definitely,
Yeah.
sir. For example, if you take this kind of web servicing, sir.
Mhm.
See, web servicing is the process where I need to have the SAP NetWeaver, where I can go with a web servicing for accessing the data from my database. So whether but because earlier I have this option in my another database. Now can I bring the same option here? Yes, definitely. So there are some limitations. I can completely accept that it's not a universal. There are some limitations are there. So how far we can extend the customer support and make the customer and satisfactory level, that we have to look on that. But I cannot give the guarantee that all your database, whatever the advantages which is giving your previous database, I can expect the same thing. I should expect the same thing. HANA means let me like okay 10-15% it is not going to be done.
So in that case, are we need to depend upon any other systems or anything like that?
But I'll get some documents. Let me discuss with my DB consultants. So I'll get this answer for you tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you. Take care. Yeah.